Thank you, friend. Shabbat Shalom. Greetings to you all. It's always a pleasure to see you. I hope you all had a great Earth Day. Now, of course, we shouldn't have to have one. I thought every day was a day to honor and care for our home. And congratulations go to Noah and Hallie, who are celebrating their first anniversary this week. It's hard to believe a year's gone by. A year of change, of growth, of self-discovery, and the journey you are on has only just begun. You've only just begun to live white lace and promises. A kiss for luck and you're on your way. You've only just begun. I love that old Carpenter song. And of course, Brett's birthday's coming up also. And it feels like a year since I've seen you. And I never get to see you on your birthday. One day perhaps. And you too have seen a great change in this last year. New job, new apartment, new beau. Keep on jubiling. And for all you easy riders out there, we're only a month away from the BAD Ride, the motorcycle charity event which stands for Bikers Against Despair, BAD, in which the funds go to the support of distress centers, which provide around-the-clock emotional safety net for those who are socially marginalized, distressed, and in crisis. So please go to thebadride.com and make a donation. And we are told to reach for those in distress in this week's Parsha to help them, to bring them back to community. Now, we talked last week about the concept of impure and pure, and that's going to come into play again this week. And friends, because of translation, interpretation, and projection, we often translate tamah and tahor, impure and pure, as unclean and clean, but they're not the same. To be tamah is to be in a particular condition, the qualities of which are invisible, but which can be transmitted to other people or objects simply by contact. Now, one comes to be in a condition of being tamah as a result of specific events, from menstruation, which this week's Parsha is partially about, from other flows from the body's sexual organs, from a woman's giving birth, from contact with a corpse, from certain forms of leprosy, which this week's Parsha is also about, or from contact with persons or objects, which already are tamah. Now, the common point seems to be that these are all things that most people in most societies instinctively do not want to touch. Blood, semen, disease, skin, corpses. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but none of them are too appealing to me. Maybe if this was some kind of like a zombie movie, and that seems to be all they make these days, it would be appealing, but you know, it just might be that the ancient Israelites came to give all these things that they found repugnant to touch a common name, which is tamah, impure. Now, this week we have another one of our double parshas, and it's a very interesting one. It's really all about the division, the distinction, the separation between impure and pure, and the steps to be taken to correct the situation. It deals with the level of impurity, tamah, that a woman undergoes when giving birth. There's a different amount of time for recovering from the impurity from giving birth to a boy, from the impurity for girls. It's double the time for girls, and no one knows why. And no, it's not because girls are twice as impure. This week we immerse ourselves into the world of impure and pure, or distinctions, as we examine Tazria and Metzora. She will conceive and leper. Now, these, my friends, are really lousy titles, but what an opening Leviticus 12:2 has. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, a woman, when she will bear seed and give birth to a male, will be impure 7 days. She will be impure like the days of impurity of her menstruation. Impurity of her menstruation. Wow, what a thing to project. A negative stereotype of women, shouting that it is nature's way of telling us when women are impure. It's not from any chosen act, but from an act of nature. I'm reminded of that fantastic song by Spirit, It's Nature's Way, from the 1970 classic album, The 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus. It's nature's way of telling you something's wrong. It's nature's way of telling you in a song. It's nature's way of receiving you. It's nature's way of retrieving you. It's nature's way of telling you something's wrong. I used to be a disc jockey back a long time ago, so every so often I fall back into it. Well, I got news for you. There is nothing wrong. And she is told to bring a sin offering to the altar. I never understood why it would be a sin offering. And when we do not understand something in the Torah, the first place we look is to the Talmud. And the Talmud explains that when a woman is in the pain of childbirth, she might inadvertently curse her husband or take a vow never to let him touch her again. And because of that, she must bring a sin offering to exonerate herself from her hasty vow or her resentful thoughts. Now, women who have gone through the pain of childbirth may find this explanation amusing and even concur with some of the sentiments, but this is hardly a credible interpretation. I find it quite amusing myself. Now, commentators have also suggested a simpler explanation is that sin offerings were often brought for purification purposes. And the sin offering was not a punishment for sin or a consequence of inequity. It was simply part of the purification ritual. Now, along similar lines, a person who suffered an unnatural bodily discharge and a person being purified of leprosy also brought sin offerings. So I guess that makes it okay. Now, our sages have also suggested that on a mystical level, the mother's 40 or 80-day journey through ritual unfitness is like a microcosm for her baby's own odyssey through life. Prior to having the baby, the woman was in a state of ritual fitness. She enjoyed the presence of God in his holy dwelling place and was fit to eat from his table. After childbirth, for whatever reason, there was a period of time during which she was unable to enter the dwelling place of God. We are not told why, simply that it is. At the conclusion of that time, the woman was readmitted to the tabernacle through the atonement of a sin offering. Wow. Now, they are right about one thing. It is a microcosm of the baby's journey. At 40 days, my friends, a baby has brain waves which are recordable. The baby is thinking and beginning to put in motion its own life, its own destiny. Thoughts are things. The Torah is a book of metaphor. But none of these really seem to address why it is a sin offering. Now, where I believe the mistake is made is in translation. Now, of course, giving birth is not a sin. Isn't mankind told to be fruitful and multiply? Were we supposed to clone ourselves? And we simply got it wrong. It is misleading to render the Hebrew chatat as sin offering. Unfortunately, almost all translations do this. The odd one that you will pick up will actually call it an offense offering. See, the childbearing woman has done nothing that can really be called a sin. A state of ritual impurity imposed on her by biological circumstances at most would make her a potential source of violation of the Holy of Holies, which would be an offense to the cult. And so she's ordered to present an offense offering that will mark the completion of her period of purification. And that's a better translation. It's hugely different as to whether we call it a sin or offense offering. And quite frankly, there really should be a better word than either of those. And unfortunately, women have paid for that translation and continue to do so. And friends, this is actually only the second mention of menstruation in the Torah, following Rachel's deception of Laban all those years ago. But this time, it is talked about matters of law, and this renders the natural rhythm and flow of life as a specific condition with particular legal status. Now, for many, it's simply a form of contamination. So even if the restrictions regarding menstruation are less extreme here than in some other cultures, the association of this natural female function with uncleanness or impurity is one that has had problematic social and perhaps psychological consequences continuing throughout post-biblical Judaism. But hey, you got to admit it's getting better. It's getting better all the time. Freud expounded the psychological component in explaining why this subject is so mysterious and intimidating to males. Now, at a more conscious level, blood is intimidating to a large proportion of the people who look away when blood is drawn. I do. Or who cannot bear to watch bloody scenes in movies, or who are distressed at the idea of contact with another person's blood. Or who, like with Lady Macbeth, there is the association of blood with guilt. Blood is powerful, physically, symbolically, emotionally. It is so powerful that Laban was willing to sacrifice his teraphim rather than approach his daughter when she has the way of women. And we've been told again and again that, you can't eat anything with blood, and that blood is the life force. So, we have this thing about blood. Now, the balance of this parsha and the next is about what we translate as leprosy, but which is really skin blanching, friends. Leprosy never made sense to me either, and I probably accepted it because it is the translation you always saw. It was what you were always told, and what you would see in all the biblical movies like Ben-Hur. But when you read this is not about leprosy. It's about skin blanching, which makes much more sense. It ties into the sign God gives Moses to perform at the burning bush, and ties into the punishment of Miriam coming up later. Now, although most translations represent the Hebrew tzarat as a leprosy, modern scholars virtually unanimous in rejecting the identification. In most biblical occurrences, tzarat is associated with a ghastly white loss of pigmentation, and hence the term skin blanch. Loss of pigmentation in hair and skin is prominent here as a determining symptom. Now, in our own time, we see it rarely, although looking at Michael Jackson and his sister, it may be much more common than I thought. But step back, friends. Take a look at what the Torah is really talking about. When one has a visible problem on his or her skin, it's a special distress. It's embarrassing. It's frightening. One feels ugly. One does not know how long it will last. One wonders if others are making fun, or pitying, or feeling disgusted. It's not that the person has done something wrong. It's not something intrinsic in the person's behavior. Being impure because of a skin condition does not mean that one has done something wrong any more than being impure because one happens to be menstruating means that one has done something wrong. Friends, the lesson here is that we must be sensitive to the added distress, embarrassment, and vulnerability that are felt by those who suffer from any illnesses that affect their appearance. Leprosy is not a punishment from God. A skin problem does not mean that the person has committed some ethical offense. There is a frequently quoted midrashin pun on the word for leprosy, metzorah, that is shorthand for metzori shemra, which means someone who brings out a bad name about someone else, and that is a slanderer. And we see that with Miriam because she is stricken with this in the wake of having criticized Moses and his wife. Right, so it all makes much more sense that way. And there are a few other dermatological disorders mentioned, mostly sexual, and talks of cures. And the person you go to is not the doctor, but the priest. The ancients perceived and described diseases and their symptoms differently than does modern Western medicine. Scholarly attempts to equate the various conditions with specific dermatological disorders have had very little success. Friends, what you need to notice is the subject is not really about keeping the disease from spreading. It is about impurity and the larger issue of categories: holy, secular, pure, impure, distinction, division, separation, the recurring concern of Leviticus and the tool of God's creation. Now, contamination does not spread, it simply infects wholly. Just touching an unclean surface makes you unclean. So the shift from pure to impure happens entirely and instantly. And part of the cleansing process is a repeat of what we saw with the ordination ceremony: the placing of blood on the right ear, thumb, and toe. Now, we didn't talk about it then, but I did get a few questions, and so I'll explain it to you now. Why the earlobe, the thumb, and big toe? Well, you see, my friends, the ritual works by representation. From the protrusion of the head via the earlobe to the protrusions of the hand and the foot, all on the right side, the governing side, the person being cleansed is symbolically covered with the blood of the offering from head to toe without actually being immersed in the blood. It is a symbolic mini mikvah of blood. And in both instances, my friends, there is a transition being affected. Here is from impure to pure. In the priestly ordination ceremony, it is from secular to holy. This theme of divisions, purification, and returning, because it's about purifying in order to bring them back into the community. It runs deep throughout all this book. And it contains, the unspoken meaning you got to find. And the unspoken meaning in this Parsha Metzora is about bringing the people who are infirm or deemed impure back into the community. Not everyone's difference is as visible as the Torah stories of dermatological issues project. Like the modern attempt by some synagogues that have installed ramps to the bima for handicapped persons and balloons for the deaf so that they can experience the vibrating sound of the shofar when Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur roll around, we must help those in need. As we were once responsible to return and include those who were impure to the congregation, so we may learn to include the handicapped, physical and mental. It is the inspiration that we can derive this lesson from a Torah parsha that seems so remote to readers in this age that is just striking. The rituals depicted in this double parsha, my friends, are not rituals of healing, though they appear to be. We need to see that these are rituals of inclusion, of restoration, as we continue with a book designed to distinguish between holy and secular, between pure and impure, the book of the priests. She said, there is no reason, and the truth is plain to see, but I wandered through my playing cards and would not let her be one of 16 Vestal virgins who were leaving for the coast. And although my eyes were open, they might just as well have been closed. Open your eyes, my friends, open your hearts. Free your heart from hatred, forgive. Free your mind from worries, because most never do happen. Live simply, appreciate what you have, give more to the world, expect less from others and more from yourself. Noah, have a wonderful anniversary. Brett, a fantastic birthday, friends. Light a candle, make a wish, celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Live free, be free, and honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light in all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, an end to terror and to hatred. And remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other, we help each other. Thank you all, love you all. See you all next time. Wishes do come true. Never stop wishing, never stop loving. Take care. Bye.